Coming to you live with the insight you need from the financials and political capitals of the world to the heart of innovation. This is Opportunities to Consider with your host, author, speaker, and corporate strategist, Hunter Gaylor.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Markets Hunter, coming to you live from the heart of innovation, where we talk about the companies that are not just making change in industry, but are being the change in industry. And today I have the pleasure that I'm joined once again from a colleague that we spoke with last week, Tim, who's the CEO of Dais Corporation. We talked about a lot of the stuff that's going on in all across the country with PFAS and everything. So I'm going to bring Tim in and we're going to dive right into the conversation and see about some of the new recent press that has come out, talk about where he's at with his organization and his company, and really dive in and have today another CEO Talk live here on Markets Hunter. Tim, how are you?
Hunter, I'm fine. And yourself?
I'm doing well. Thank you for joining us on another episode.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Just to reintroduce you to our audience, Tim, you are the CEO of Dais. And let's just start out to give a real quick refresher on what is the mission of Dais, what Dais does, and we'll dive into some of the current market happenings.
Sure. We have developed a family of materials we call a platform, and they're nanomaterials, and we use the features in those materials to make what we call a disrupted or incredibly sustainable product, because you're using features of a material, a membrane in this case, where you're not using energy, motors, pumps, things like that. So we replace all that. So we become incredibly less expensive in terms of operating costs. Our emissions into the sky are a lot lower. You look at the air conditioning track that we're following, you're talking 50% plus on both of those in terms of savings. So yeah. It's using the membrane, the features of a membrane to replace things that are motors, pumps, things like that break. Use energy.
Yeah, and I remember last time we spoke, I mean, we have not seen any real innovation in the air conditioning or refrigeration industry since really Carrier started it. And if people want to go back, that was an incredible conversation that we had, and that's listed on our sites across all platforms. And I encourage people to go listen to that conversation. But there's been a significant press release about PFAS and chemicals and what the EU, has proposed in regulations. And so can you talk a little bit about that, Tim, and what that means for Dais and what that means for the European Union?
Absolutely. Before you go on, though, I just want to make a comment about the Carrier thing. Look, a lot of people in the industry, they work very hard, and the air conditioning we have today is wonderful. But this is fundamentally different. The architecture begins the difference, and then the nanomaterial allows that architecture to change, but then finishes it off. So I just want to make that point. The EU, they came out with some new regulations, and those regulations are aimed at a couple of things. But the primary focus for us is on this water contamination, and it's called PFAS. And if it said the full chemistry term, I think most of the people that are listening to this would be sound asleep. But there are 40,000 plus types of it, but there are 4 that are really, really big. And if you go and have things tested, that's what people look at. So the EU came out and said that we don't want people using these forever chemicals anymore making products in the EU. And in addition to that, they said that, okay, now here's some of the products that either have it because they were made that way with these PFAS materials, or by their operation, they produce PFAS. Well, this is an interesting one. One of them is refrigerants. And you say, well, wait a minute, how are you going to run your air conditioners if you don't have refrigerants? Okay, there's some carve-outs, and there's going to be some times that they allow them to step this back in terms of the implementation. But instead of it being 18 months, they give them between 4 years and 7 years. The point is, refrigerants, as we know them, aren't being knocked out in the EU. That's a huge statement. And that's exactly how our air conditioning system works. It doesn't use refrigerants. It uses water, this material, and some vacuum. And it does all sorts of wonderful things in addition to what we get today from what I'll call the Carrier Plus routine. The second thing is, and this is people talk about green energy. Yes. Okay, great. Fuel cells, electrolyzers, great. They all run primarily on a perfluorinated ionomer. That's a fancy name for a piece of plastic that is rugged and tough and all the rest of this. Well, that's a PFAS material. They can't use it. And you say, well, what does that mean to you, Tim? Simple. Everything we do with the Aqualite family, the nanotechnology family, it is exactly like a perfluorinated ionomer, but it's a hydrocarbon. It's a different base material. It has a higher performance. It doesn't have the same lifetime. Okay, but we've never really focused on that. And this is the first time that it's been something that's going to be mandated. You can't use them. So anybody that's in the fuel cell business or in electrolyzers or anybody, a lot of kidney dialysis machines use this material too. In the EU, it's going away. They have 18 months.
And it seems to me that Dais is the company, based on our last conversations, what you're saying now, is the solution to fill that void that will be in the marketplace.
It certainly is a wonderful opportunity standing at the head of the line. I would like to be as bold as you are, but I won't want people to interpret me as being arrogant.
No, that's okay. This is Market Hunters, and we do hunt for the opportunities globally. So that's why this is important. But, moving on a little bit, Dais, you are a growth company. You are in an evolving industry. It's that advanced materials. It's that nanotechnology that you're developing. When we go back and we look at what's happening in the European Union, that seems to be government regulation. Is government regulation or the demand of a changing market is that a growth driver for your company?
I think a lot of times it is, but the challenge is that by the time the government usually gets around to it, there are things that shouldn't have happened or things that should have stopped long before that. So it's something that we can talk about, like we're talking about these EU regulations. But the real driver in my mind, in the mind of the people I work with primarily, it's let the market decide. What you need to do is you need to build a damn good product. You need to have it do what the market's demanding. In this case, it has to be much nicer to the atmosphere, and it has to be less expensive to run. And oh, by the way, I'd like it to do more. All right. Okay. So you do those things and you work out relationships with large companies, with small companies. It doesn't make a difference. Whatever channel there is available to you. And I think you're much better ahead because you've earned that money and the government could change its mind with something. God only knows, but it's faster and you make more money doing it, which is what we're here for. And at the same time, we're trying to do the right thing for the people of the world, society.
Well, I do agree. Demand does drive growth at times, and because Dais is a growth company, from a market perspective, we want to keep a very sharp eye on the timing because you are publicly traded. We did put the your symbol for people to go follow your stock. You keep a sharp eye on timing and need for capital. What type of investor profile would you identify is the right type of investor for your company?
I'm going to answer that by a little bit of history, and that is look at what it took to develop penicillin. Look at what it took to develop the semiconductor. Each one of those, you can round the number up to like around 20 years, and look where they are. Penicillin finally was usable in the mid 1940s. We're how many years ahead of that now? And it's still the basis for almost every major drug in terms of its delivery mechanism. Semiconductor. Did you think that people thought back when, I don't know, that they would have them in shoes, and at the same time, avionics, they're so sophisticated, you don't even have to, you don't have to drive your own car anymore. So it's the same kind of thing. Okay, what's the investment? In my opinion, what you want is somebody that looks at the technology, looks at the market opportunities. You don't have to understand the technology, but look at the market, look where the market is going, and then be a patient investor. When I say patient, I'm not looking for people like the old Ma Bell thing, lifetime thing. No, I'm saying that if you want to put money in this company and really be serious about it, then put it in for 2 to 3 years. And that's what I believe the horizon is for us to do what we want to do. And then that's really get towards $100 million because we have the technology. We just need to execute.
So at a 50,000 foot view of your company, what would you say is the CEO and leader of the company is your path and timeline to reach that $100 million market cap? Or let's not even say market cap. Let's do 100 million in revenues.
Oh, that's the beauty of it. I look at what we're doing today with one person. We're going to hit this year. We feel comfortable as long as the financing comes along and nothing major changes. I'll just leave that one alone geopolitically. We look comfortable this year to doing 8 million, which is 4 times what we did last year. And we look to be at 100 million by the year of 2026, early 2026. Because
so we're very close. It's that 2 to 3 year investor profile to hold but watch the development of the company. And I just want to take a step back here. When you go back and you look at this announcement that came off with PFAS, at some point there are going to be people that or organizations like you that have to step into the role of, fulfilling the void. So I think that based on what you're saying, for any of our listeners and our viewers that are watching this, it seems to me that type of timeline is good for implementation.
Yes. That's the beauty of it, because PFAS is an interesting thing. I've been around the water industry for about 10 years now, a little bit more than that. And I've never seen the regulatory bodies move so quickly. This is an issue, and it's fast. It's coming very quickly. One of the biggest uses, one of the biggest opportunities we have, you're going to laugh at this initially, is in the consumer market, because people buy all sorts of things to clean the water in their house today, but they're not knocking out PFAS. We can do that. So we have to partner with somebody that's in the consumer market, but there's so many ways that we can go to market and the channels available to us. It needs people and it needs the resource to just get it done. We need to execute against the plan.
Well, I think bringing it to a relevant scenario, we just saw some of the unfortunate incidents that has happened in locations like Flint, Michigan here in the United States, or say this recent event in East Palestine, Ohio. So obviously water purification, just water in general, is obviously of top importance as a talking point, specifically an issue in the U.S. and in industry. So it seems you're very well positioned, to be involved in some of the solutions to some of these problems and events that are going on. Let me just dive into a nitty gritty question here. We often hear about inflation that's going on, rampant supply chain issues. A lot of companies we're seeing now with recent job reports coming out under this administration as a backdrop, people are being let go. What do the revenues look like where you are as a company right now in 2023, say for the next 2 to 3 quarters?
I would say by the end of the year, we're going to do what we said last year, and that is we're going to be very close to 8 million in revenue. And that's just the one product. And things change. People, you talk about PFAS, you talk about all these big opportunities. Sure, if they fall into place, they take some time. But if that happens, the number's going to be bigger. Everybody will be happier. But what we see today with the business that we have, it's robust, it's growing, it's great. We see it being close to 8, and moving into 2024 stronger. 2025 the same. Bringing on more things as we do that. When I say more things, right now we have the energy recovery ventilator, and we're selling the material itself in certain applications, like to a refrigeration company, a multinational type of place that makes 1 out of every 10 white goods in the world. They're putting a little piece of the polymer in their crisper drawers to make things last longer. So you've got things like that are getting bigger and bigger, and there are other things behind it, the PFAS, the water opportunities, the larger pieces in the air conditioning thing that we're pursuing with the large multinational company in the U.S. So we feel good about that. The future is bright.
Well, it's also green and purified, it seems to me as well. So, pun intended there.
Yep.
But being a growth company that you are, can you talk a little bit about some of the ways that you grow outside of just providing? I mean, are you going to be looking at things such as licensing, or are you going to be looking at joint ventures or partnerships in order to help your company grow at a more rapid pace outside of this one particular multinational organization? Are you going to be working with multiple? Can you speak to that point?
We're going to work with as many people as we can that will buy the material, because it makes us money and it returns money to our shareholders, the stakeholders. And at the same time, as I said before, we're doing the right thing. We're going to hand the planet back to people when we're gone that's in a little bit better shape. So that's an important thing. But yes, we will look at a number of different things. The model that we're looking at that we've been very successful with is what I call the Apple model. We design it, we show others how to make it, they make it, and they buy things from us to make it work. That's what we're really good at. And I think that's something in business that sometimes people They try to buy off on things because it looks good, it's attractive financially, but not so much because there's a culture. The culture here is plastics, and we can make them do a lot of things that other people can't. So,
Well, we talk a lot about plastics and the whole recycling and all of these different applications and use cases. At the bottom of the screen, we've got a couple of things that we pulled from your site with regards to some of your products, NanoClear being one of them. Can you talk a little bit about NanoClear and why it's a differentiator from some of the other
oh,
products in the
sure.
market?
Just like I talked about with air conditioning, the way that people clean water today primarily is reverse osmosis and perfluorinated ionomer, fancy term, membrane. It's a membrane that has little tiny holes in it, but you're shoving water at it at 600 psi. You don't need to be a rocket scientist to figure out, wait a second, those little holes in that membrane are going to get occluded and all sorts of trouble happens. Okay, so fundamental difference. We aren't high pressure. We just flow water by the membrane. The membrane says, I like you. You are a water molecule. It takes it and lets it go through. You say, okay, but how come there's not all sorts of holes? Well, it's a solid piece of plastic that you can move water molecules bidirectionally through it. And you're saying, come on, Tim. If it's solid, how can you move water through it? That's the beauty of nanotechnology. That's the beginning of where we live. So the architecture is different, just like with air conditioning. We use low pressure and we flow water by a membrane that does a lot of work. The membrane does a lot of the work. And that's really what it boils down to. It's incredibly simple, but it's complex, if that makes sense.
Well, no, I mean, absolutely. One of the things that I think would be beneficial for our audience, and the reason I want to bring that up is when our analysts look at this, we're looking at it from an industrial application use perspective. One of the ideas that we want to explore is the way you just described this with this nanotechnology. Is there applications for this technology in municipalities?
Not so much. And the reason is that the state of the product right now, you drive this and keep the cost of it low by using waste heat, industrial waste heat. So if a municipality has access to waste heat, or one of the things that we're looking at is most municipalities have landfills. Those landfills, they have gas coming out of them. Take the gas, use that to provide the heat that you need to make this work. Bingo, it works.
So that's an incredible industrial application that can reduce a lot of the carbon emissions that are going on. This is actually real sustainability and green technology, as they say. Yes. So I think that's very important.
And the interesting thing is, if you look at some of the water that we've processed in the past, it's so bad that you have to wear a hazmat suit with a head, the oxygen, the whole 9 yards. Seconds later, it comes out the other side and you can drink it. Now, the fact that I glow at night, no, I'm teasing. It's amazing. To me, it's like watching a Boeing 747, well, 787 now, or 777, take off. You know, you understand, but you still look at this thing that weighs 300 tons. How the hell do you do that? Same thing. It's just wonderful.
Well, I mean, that example right there that you just said, that you can take essentially very toxic water, run it through your system, and then essentially have water that's purified enough for human consumption. I think that right there is a testament to what Dais can do. And that's not hype. That's just from an individual's perspective. I think that's critical.
You know, I go back to this saying all the time. I must say it 10 times a day. This stuff works. It just works. And it doesn't stop. It keeps going and going and going. That's the beauty. It's like if you have, it's hard to believe I use this analogy being in Florida, but it's like you have ice on the sidewalk outside. As long as you throw salt at that, it's going to take out that ice. I don't care what happens. The same thing here. The membrane does what it does, and unless you do something to it, it's not going to stop. That's the beauty of it.
Tim, continuing on those lines, and for the sake of today's programming, once again, for our viewers, at the bottom of the screen, we've put up conserve EVR and nano air. I'd like you to talk a little bit about that and what your company's doing with that particular product as well.
That's actually the HVAC industry. We are, in our own words, we're redesigning it from the ground up because the architecture is different. So today you have gases and you have pumps and all sorts of things. We don't have that. Like I said before, a little bit of water, the membrane and some vacuum, and we can do some incredible things. We do incredible things. We do cooling, heating and cooling. Well, we do the cooling part of it. The heating is this baseboard type thing. But we also humidify and dehumidify with the same membrane. So you're not using a lot of different components. There are very few moving parts. That's good from a maintenance perspective. But the bigger issue is that you can actually manage temperature and moisture separately. Think about that for a second. When you walk into a room and it feels whatever to you, you either turn the temperature down or you turn the temperature up. You don't have the opportunity to manage the humidity in the room. This allows you to do both. So that's one of the ways that it becomes so darn efficient. And it really does. Again, it just works. So that's a beautiful thing. And you're not doing as much in terms of the energy. Plus, you have the fresh air, which is called conserve. That's huge. People finally understood ventilation. HV, the V is ventilation, HVAC, because of the pandemic. Now they get it. They understand that if you don't have sufficient ventilation, you're going to be sick. And you're smarter if you have ventilation like this. And the beauty of what we do with the material is that it has high performance and there are no moving parts inside of the device that we make. The other types of technology, it's a rotating device. It breaks and it has high efficiency, but nobody likes the maintenance. So we kind of have the best of both worlds.
Well, I mean, that is another point that I think is important for our audience. And I'm just looking at some of our notes here. The fact of the matter is that the cost of maintenance for HVAC and industry alone is, in the billions of dollars. Can you talk about some of the cost-cutting measures that by deploying your technology will be able to assist in lowering those costs in industry for the consumer and the business?
Yes, and I think the perfect example is an electric car versus an internal combustion engine car. The number of parts in the electric car, hugely different. Because you don't have a transmission, you don't have a motor, you don't have a radiator, you don't have a starter. All that stuff is gone. Same thing here. You're not using high voltage devices. You're not using these wonderful compressors and motors. We have a system here right now that has 65 forward speeds on it, the motor. You don't have any of that. So that's where the maintenance side of it becomes incredibly powerful argument financially. Then you start talking about carbon credits, and that's coming. That is coming. Don't kid yourself. That is coming. So the machines are being designed so that you can take advantage of carbon credits. And that's something that pays on and on and on. So
no, I think that's a very good point.
The membrane doing the work, and you can't see it, but the molecules are doing it. And the fact that you have things like carbon credits coming along, that's where it gets its ability to be incredibly cost effective.
I think that's a good point. And finally, Tim, is there anything else that you'd like to add for our audience before we come to the end of our programming?
Yes. I believe that if you look at this market called sustainability, people call it green, they call it a lot of different things. All of those things have been beaten so badly. To me, it's about sustainability. It's about performance. And I really think that we should all start looking at how do you build a metric that you measure me by with Dais and others by. So you say, well, like a specific performance value, SPD, for the lack of a better definition. We have to start looking at doing things like that. You think about the yellow stickers on electric like home appliances that say you're going to use this much and you save this much, blah, blah, blah. It's like that, but even more so because you're looking not only at the energy, you're looking at the CO2, and you're looking at the other things that it does in terms of its contribution to the environment. So to start looking at something like that, in my opinion, is what we all should do. And if there's an opportunity for people to be a champion of that, that's great. The other thing was the investors that want to sit with us and work with us. This is going to be a ride. This is going to be a rocket. It's going to be a lot of fun. So join up.
Well, Tim, I really appreciate your time today. And for our viewing audience, obviously, their information is at the bottom of the screen. You can feel free to visit their website. I encourage you to follow their company, add it to your portfolios or at least your watch lists. And Tim, what's the best way if there are, investment firms or groups that are out there that are looking to get in touch with you? How do they do that? Do they go through your website, or do you have a particular way to go about doing that?
The website's good, but to come to me directly, that's fine. It's real simple. The best email ID is Tim period Tangretti, which is a little bit difficult, but it's TANGREDI@gmail.com. Send me a note. Love to talk.
Well, that would be great. So right there, folks, I mean, what great leadership, just giving out his email just like that to communicate with him. So, I mean, that's the purpose of what we do here at Markets Hunter. That's the purpose of what we do, is to have in-depth conversations with the leadership of industry here and really try to push industry forward. So we really appreciate your time, Tim. We look forward to speaking with you again. It's always a pleasure. We're always excited about about the innovation that you're doing, because it directly affects not just me and my family, but really the globe in this perspective. So I do like that. We do like to see industry being moved forward. So Tim, thank you so much for joining us today, and we look forward to having you back on the program very shortly.
Well, again, thank you for having me. Thank you for listening. And it's exciting. It's an exciting time. It's been a long time in terms of the market coming around. The market is here, and it's our opportunity, and you're helping spread the word. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Tim, and we look forward to having you back on the program very shortly. Take care.
Thanks.
All right, everyone, thank you. If you enjoyed that conversation and you want to hear from more CEOs just like Tim that are disrupting the industry day by day by creating incredible technologies that affect you and I and the world for that matter on a daily basis, make sure you follow Markets Hunter. Follow us on Twitter. We're really growing there. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube. If you missed the live stream across any of our channels today, make sure you go tune to our YouTube channel, where our subscribers are growing at a tremendous rate. So thank you so much for the support there. And this video will be posted in its entirety there. And once again, we love bringing you the conversations with the CEOs and the executives that are moving the industry. You can follow me at my Twitter at huntergaylor.com or at Hunter Gaylor on Twitter. All of our information is on the screen. And follow Dais right here. We put the logo right here. Where is it? Right here. Right here. Put it right here. So make sure you go follow the company. And for more innovative stuff, follow them on LinkedIn and their social media platforms as well. We will like spreading the word. Like, subscribe, and share across all the platforms. And we look forward to you joining us again for another Markets Hunter CEO Talk live across all platforms. Thanks, everyone.